I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we are speaking with author James Bridgewater about his wonderful book, Blind Justice, where protagonist Mark Wilson navigates the competing forces of immorality and sanity. Mark's traumatic childhood experiences have left him with split personalities and psychosomatic blindness, but with the help of his guide dog Willow and his childhood friend turned drag queen, Rocket Queen, he transforms into Blind Justice, a transvestite vigilante seeking justice against pedophiles, corrupt celebrities, and bankers. We're delighted to have James on the spotlight today. Thank the team at Sweet Spire Literature Management for helping us put him in the spotlight today, and ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel. James, thanks so much for being on our show today.
Well, thanks for the invitation.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Blind Justice is quite an epic tale. Why don't we begin by telling the folks at home what it's all about?
Well, it's about someone who was messed around with when they were an orphan at an orphanage because their parents died in a car accident. And due to what happened there, they ended up having a split personality, like you said,
Yeah.
and also the psychosomatic blindness, which is why he gets his guide dog, Willow.
It seems like a lot of, heroes of this type, namely like Batman, has gone through a traumatic experience where they've taken from their childhood the motivation to go forward and seek justice. Do you see the kind of a parallel there a little bit?
I do, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I talk about traumatic childhood as well. That's talked about in my book, which is my autobiography, which is something else I've done as well.
Yeah. And what were some of the traumatic childhood experiences that Mark Wilson suffered? Were they mostly sexual abuse?
Mainly that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he got
And
post-traumatic stress disorder.
right. And that made him want to champion children in general and protect them, right?
Yeah, very much like the person of Batman that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, because there's
Absolutely.
lots of Batman and Spider-Man films and stuff these days, but one I always think of as Batman, apart from the Adam West, was the Michael Keaton one. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
the first Batman film with Val Kilmer in as well.
Yeah. Adam West kind of played it more comically, I guess. The other Batmen were a little more dark, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's also Daredevil, which is another blind hero, right?
I haven't seen that. I haven't
Oh,
been to the cinema for ages.
yeah, yeah.
Last
It's
thing
a
I went to
comic
see
book
without
also, and it's a pretty good movie, a TV series as well. Um, so what? Tell me a little bit about psychosomatic blindness. Is this a real thing?
as far as I know, it is. Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
remember the name of the book or the doctor, but there was a book all about people who get messed around with as children and get split personalities. And I read a book about that, doing research before I actually started writing Blind Justice. And also, I looked up some stuff on the internet, various other places about psychosomatic blindness. Yeah. You can get really stressed out, and then that makes your vision go, or comes tunnel vision first, and then you lose it totally, which is why he's got his guide dog Willow, because he doesn't know when he's going to lose his sight, and it just happens sometimes when he hears a word or something like that, or maybe in a situation, or if he hears a name or something. Yeah. I mean, there's one episode in the book where he's in a pub and he reads a magazine, well, a book, or he reads a newspaper. That's it. Yeah? And I can't remember if it's the photograph he sees in the newspaper or reading the name, but that sort of sets off one of his blindness episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's quite a compelling character you've created and a very real yet surreal world, I think, which is what makes it interesting. I love the fact that his companion is a guide dog. First of all, I'm a dog fan, and I just think it just visually is such an interesting companion for him to have.
Yeah, well, myself, I'm more of a cat person, but I do have a very good friend who was got a dog who's been his sort of companion for years, and that he helped look after him when he was living on the streets.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the dark secret that Mark harbors in the book?
The other side of his personality, which is blind justice, what Blind Justice goes out and does when people think that he's just being a lady, the clothes that he wears when he gets dressed up being a transvestite.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, you're breaking ground there. I don't know if there's been a transvestite vigilante yet in modern literature, but you've created quite a memorable character. Any reason why you decided to have him be a transvestite?
Well, a few years ago when I started writing the book, I knew a transvestite quite well. He's a friend of mine who I used to meet at an art group that used to meet at a local library. Because for years he worked in the local dockyard here in Plymouth, and he just kept it hidden from everyone, even his wife, I think. But then what happened was he retired from the dockyard, so he didn't have to deal with his work colleagues anymore. And then his wife ended up going into a care home due to, I think she had dementia or some medical condition anyway. And so he was living by himself in his house, which his wife had left the clothes in. So he started trying them on. And then after that, he wore them around the house. And as he got more and more comfortable and more and more confident, he would walk around the streets in them. And then he just generally wore them whatever he was doing. Yeah. But he
Interesting.
was not a sort of small, he didn't look at all feminine. He was quite a big man.
Yeah.
I think he could have been a heavyweight boxer.
Yeah. It's a little
I'm happy to go
juxtaposition
walking
there.
around the streets wearing sort of makeup and uh, jewelry and all sorts of women's clothes because he used to buy it in second-hand shops and wear the stuff that his wife had left in the wardrobes when she'd gone live in the care home.
Mm. Interesting, interesting. Tell the folks at home what role Rocket Queen plays in Blind Justice's quest for justice.
Oh, well, when they're in the orphanage, when they're both teenagers, or um, what happens is I can't remember his name in the book before he's called before he's called
Rocket
Rocket
Queen.
Queen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Rocket Queen decides that he wants to leave it all behind and go over and work in America, and so he goes over to New York, grows up there, and gets a job working as a drag queen over there. And I got the name Rocket Queen from a song by Guns N' Roses on their album Appetite for Destruction.
Awesome, awesome. Very, very creative, very inspired as well. And tell us a little bit about the nemesis for Blind Justice, Inspector Tracy Hansard.
Oh yeah, Tracy Hansard is the local police inspector, and it's her job to go and catch any sort of serial murderers or major criminals in the local area. And what happens is she's a cat person, and when Blind Justice finds out where she lives, she tries to poison her cat.
Interesting, interesting. Now, how long did you work on this book? Tell me about the writing process a little bit.
I find it takes about a year or so to write a book, and about a year or so to get it sort of printed, edited, and published, and all that kind of thing.
Hmm. Do you enjoy the
And
writing process?
I do.
Yeah, yeah. Are you
But what
working
I
on
do
any other books?
at the moment, I was doing some research on things like what do you call it, borderline personality disorder, or some people will compare that to post-traumatic stress disorder. Because what I'm
Mhm.
looking at now is someone who becomes a religious person. They join the ministry, and then they decide to remain as a minister, but then go and work with the armed forces. And because this one's set in the past, a bit from now, they'll probably end up going down to somewhere like the Falklands, or maybe Iran, or Iraq, or Northern Ireland as well. And then working there, they sort of lose their faith in God and the church and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And that's one of the things I'm looking at the moment.
very, very interesting. Well, it sounds like it's going to be a good one as well. Let's turn back to Blind Justice a little bit. It's set in New York. Why did you decide to set it in New York, and how does that contribute to the story?
Well, New York is a fascinating city. It's a place I would love to come and visit one day, yeah. Because the aspect of it that are over in the UK, I called it Tamar Mouth, but it's actually just a version of Plymouth, which is where I live, which is the place I know. And we do have a river Tamar which flows into the city. But also a friend of mine had been over to New York just while I was doing the writing, and he
Mm.
came over and we were talking about some of the things that happen in New York. And when I was growing up, I used to watch Hill Street Blues.
Hmm.
Yeah, that police series set in New York with Captain Furillo, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good strong character, isn't it?
Yeah. That was quite a groundbreaking series at the time for
Yeah.
realism, which is very, very true, for sure. Well, the book is wonderful. What was the most challenging aspect for you when it came to writing Blind Justice?
Oh, just the actual sort of physical aspect of getting up quite early in the morning because I find I'm most creative quite early in the morning, and that's when I can do best reading and writing. And just getting up and getting 80,000 words down onto the when I write poems and stuff and short stories, maybe I can do pen to paper, but when I'm doing a bigger thing like this, I find it's much easier to do it straight onto the computer, and then I can do the word processing and stuff.
Absolutely. Why did you decide to explore the theme of revenge in this book?
Well, it just seemed very relevant to what was going on in the news at the time because it was around the time that DJ Jimmy Savile was being taken to court for being a paedophile.
Mm.
And I know that people for a long time couldn't believe that he had done anything. And then when they found that he had, they were looking to get revenge on him. And
Yeah, it's a
other
horrible,
cases.
horrible crime because it impacts children for the rest of their lives. I mean, it's not a crime that ends. It's a crime that continues, which is what's so awful about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. How does Blind Justice gain confidence throughout the story? We see him evolve, that's for sure.
Well, a bit like Hannibal Lecter and various other sort of serial killers in various pieces of fiction and stuff. As they go along and they don't get caught, they get more and more confident and they carry on because they've got a real taste for it and they know what to do and how to do it. And so they can just carry on.
Have you been thinking about writing a sequel to Blind Justice?
I've been discussing it with a few friends of mine who are writers as well. And it's
And are
certainly
you getting any encouragement?
some, yeah.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good, good. Have you
So it's
thought
certainly
about this as a film
a
or a TV
possibility, yeah.
series at all?
Oh, I would love to get it made into a film or a TV series, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Any idea who would play Blind Justice?
Uh, well, as I said earlier, I haven't been to the cinema for a long time. I don't watch many modern films these days, and so I don't know who the sort of real lead actors are these days. But looking at
Right.
some of the people, we're still around these days, but I haven't seen what they're up to at the moment. Um, Leonardo DiCaprio is one I like, and also
Hmm.
going further back, John Malkovich, I think. But I think they need to be able to very much play the feminine part as well as the
Yeah.
masculine part. And I'm
They're,
not
they're
sure who could do that.
they're very strong actors. I'm sure they could absolutely pick up those roles. Which characters are based on real life characters in your book? Are any of them? I know you mentioned that you had one friend who was a cross dresser, and that kind of inspired you. Any other characters in this book you based off of real people?
Not really, no.
No.
No,
Yeah. So it
no,
was
they're
all imagination. Well, you've
all
got
fictional
quite an
from my
imagination,
imagination.
which is great. Do you think Blind Justice is a book that will help shed light on the problems of pedophilia?
It might do, yeah. I would
Yeah.
certainly be keen to help anyone who wants to do that kind of thing. Because what I'm doing at the moment for work and stuff is in, I'm working various community organisations and things, promoting awareness of autism and epilepsy, which are both conditions that I've got. And we've got I don't know if it's national or international, but the end of this month is Autism Awareness Week. And we'll be doing some charity stuff and raising some money for the National Autistic Society.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Wonderful. That's great work that you're doing. Do you enjoy working in that line of work?
Oh, it's getting more and more rewarding the more I'm doing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
doing various courses and things to get qualifications to be called what they call an expert by experience is
Yeah.
one thing I'm doing at the moment, and possibly become an autistic ambassador. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Over here, we've got Chris Packham, who does various wildlife programs on the BBC, and he's an autistic ambassador, and he's just made a couple of good documentary films recently.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, autism and ambassadors are needed because it just seems like the problem gets worse and worse. I mean, when I was growing up, few, if anyone, had autism. Now it seems like in every school, there's at least one child with autism in every class. Any idea why the problem might be getting worse?
Well, I don't think it's getting any worse. I just think people are more aware of it now.
Hmm,
I reckon there's just as many people now with autism as there was in the past. Yeah. But it's becoming people are much more aware of it these days. I think my father was autistic and probably his father was as well, but it wasn't a word that we even knew back then. Yeah. And people
right.
used to Asperger's syndrome and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing is that there's different, gradations of autism. Some are very mild, like you said, like Asperger's syndrome, and then others are much more severe where there's a complete breakdown of the communication process, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very, very interesting as well. The idea of split personalities, how did that come to you in crafting this book?
I can't remember where I first got the idea about that, but I suppose, oh, you mentioned Batman earlier,
Hmm,
because there was, what's his name, who became a Joker, yeah. That Jack Nicholson character, yeah.
hmm.
I suppose there'd been, um, well, I suppose, was it Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was an early sort of story of split
Yeah.
personality. Just, that was Robert Louis Stevenson, I think. Yeah, because I read a lot of this all classical books in fiction and stuff throughout the years. Just being an only child and my father being busy away at work and just being the two of us. And so to pass the time, I've always done a lot of reading and writing and stuff.
Yeah, and I think even if you don't have a clinical diagnosis of split personality disorder, everyone in their own way has a split personality, a personality that they keep to themselves at times, that they share perhaps only with family members, another view of themselves that they show to the world and to their colleagues. Do you kind of agree with that?
Well, according to the star signs, I'm a Gemini, and so that's got two sides to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Gemini the twins, for sure, for sure. And you're based in the UK, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You spent your whole life in the UK?
Um, well, apart from a couple of holidays I've had going to Africa and France, and I did spend 6 months teaching English in Hungary.
Very
I'm basically,
nice. Very nice. Are you excited about the coronation of the king coming up?
no, I'm a Republican myself.
Okay. I don't think too many people are excited about the coronation of the king, that's for sure. Well, the book is wonderful. It is called Blind Justice. It is written by James Bridgewater. It's an amazing exploration of the human psyche about a man who rises up and decides to right some wrongs. And he is a very, very unique character, but it is a very, very compelling story, and it is highly recommended. James Bridgewater, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Well, thank you.
And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.